Welcome to Plain Talk, where we're going to be talking some higher education and big changes in higher ed. We have multiple vacancies in the president's position that need to be filled. Is it two? I should introduce our guest before I just start talking to him, because I have a tendency to do that. I'll just start talking. I don't introduce. Our guest is the commissioner of the North Dakota University system. You may say, Rob, weird. Why are you calling him a commissioner? He's the chancellor. Well, it turned out we weren't supposed to be calling them the chancellor all this time. The state constitution and state law says the commissioner, not the chancellor. So, all those past chancellors were unconstitutional, I guess, because we were calling them the wrong thing. They should have been, I'm joking. They should have been, be called the commissioner. So our commissioner of higher education, Brent Sanford. And what is it? Is it two vacancies in the university system? We have NDSU and Valley City.
We have four. We have
Four.
DCB and Bismarck State.
My goodness. Four. All right. So that's a lot of work. Now, one thing that I've been arguing a little bit, and first of all, I want to say I'm sad to see David. This is not me being backhanded towards any of the other presidents. I thought David Cook in particular came into a really tough job at North Dakota State. Enrollment was down. They had a big budget shortfall. He really did a lot of hard work to clean that up. I don't blame him for wanting to go home. I think there's some personal reasons there that he wants to head back to Iowa, where they're from. Hard to blame anybody for wanting to go home. But he's leaving behind some big shoes to fill at NDSU.
Yes, he is. And President Lefebvre from Valley City is a very similar story, going back home to his alma mater at Northern State in Aberdeen. So those two are, dream opportunities for both of those men. I'm happy for them both and their families. Sad for us, right? And it's a lot of work to replace presidents. It's an upheaval at these campuses when everybody's worried about who's the next person going to be, and they're mourning the loss of their leader. And both of these men are revered, and they're appreciated at their campuses. They've both done a lot of work. And look at the other ones, Bismarck State and Dakota College Bottineau. You have retirements that create these trickle effects. So Darling retiring in Lake Region allowed an opening for Dr. Simone to move in from Bottineau. So then you elevate an internal VP, Corey Gorder at Bottineau, and same thing with Bismarck State with the internal Vice President of Academic Affairs, Dan Leinganger, both elevated, but we're doing searches at both of those. Minot State is leading the search at Bottineau because they have an administrative contract to be overseeing the campus, but the system office is in the middle of three with Bismarck, Valley City, and NDSU. So yes, it's a lot of work in addition to interim legislative formula committee, higher ed institutions, looking at ERP replacements, so looking at our IT system replacement in another study, and looking at dual credit in the education committee. So it's a busy time in higher ed. It always is, but but by the way, I'm enjoying it. And yes, the commissioner change that happened when I was put in and voted in as the permanent leader of the system, the permanent CEO of the system, as defined in the Constitution and the Century Code. Is the CEO of the system is the commissioner of higher education, and that's been 2 months now.
Brent, Rob and I talked some about before you got this role that it made sense for you to stay on in this role. You're a North Dakota guy, and you want to be here. I think that the NDSU president, the Valley City president are, again, I agree with you. They're great leaders. They're going to be a big loss. But are those two more examples of maybe we should do a better job of trying to fill internally? If you have an NDSU grad, you don't have to worry about them leaving to go to their alma mater down in Iowa. I mean, should we be putting more of an emphasis on hiring local folks for these big jobs?
Yeah, good question, Chad. I mean, I've expressed this. Wouldn't it be amazing if we had alumni coming in and applying for these jobs, similar to what Iowa State and Northern State were blessed with? And
Right.
All kidding aside, I mean that then creates something where possibly they keep the job until retirement. Frankly, I have other presidents in the system that are telling me, "Hey, I love living in North Dakota, but I'd like one more opportunity before I'm done." So I mean, these president positions are, they're generally a little more than 2 or 3 years. They're more like 4 to 7 years. But in the big scheme of things with running institutions, if you get that 12-year president that stays for a long time, a Larry Scogan, someone like that, Tom Clifford in the UND, is in Laura if UND is one they always talk about of the days of Tom Clifford, right? I mean, see if you get that 10, 12-year run, how much solid ground that leaves your campus on, and teamwork, etc. So these are things that come into play as we get into, back in time. April, we were looking at legislature questioning why we use the search firms, why we spent so much on searches, what are we going to do going forward, and I guess now is a time to decide of how to do that, knowing that there's intention for us not to use search firms for every single one of these. So we're looking at one of the four would be with the search, and likely the largest one. That'd be a lot of internal work, right? And the constituency from NDSU obviously is looking at the need for the largest breadth of candidates as possible. So then we'll hit a legislative session again with, we'll see what the reaction is. Is it appropriate? Are we getting really good presidential candidates from the internal searches? These are internal searches as in bringing in resumes, advertising nationally. So it's not just limiting anything, right? I mean, it's allowing that the national advertising in the appropriate places where interested VPs and presidents are seeing these opportunities. So we believe we can do a good job with internal searches, but I guess it's one of those where the success is judged later on once the candidates
Yeah.
are in place and we see how the
I
new presidents are doing.
I think that's all fair. As someone who's been banging the drum about promoting internally and also belly aching about how sometimes it seems like whether it's a city commission or a county commission or the university system, it's like sometimes it feels like we can't tie our shoes without asking a consultant how to do it first. And it's a little frustrating, and I think we spend a lot of money on it. Although, I mean, there are limits to it. I mean, it's one thing to say, "Oh, we ought to promote from within." Well, do people within want the job? Who
Yeah.
are the applicants? That's a fair question. We talk about that in politics. Oh, we ought to elect more of this sort of person. We ought to elect more of that sort of person. Well, are those people running? Because you can't elect
Right.
them if they're not on the ballot. So
Absolutely.
that's
Absolutely.
that's part of the problem. But tell us
Yep.
a little bit about what the process looks like. I mean, the idea of maybe saving some money on a search firm and promoting from within. I mean, how do these things? Is there like a national Craigslist or something for university jobs, or how does that even monster.com? I don't know. I mean, how
Well,
does
one side says you're not going to get the candidates because they're basically recruited and held on the bench by the recruiting firms, and then they open up that avenue once the positions are posted, and then they're bringing in their candidates.
there are markets and everything, aren't they?
Oh
Big
yes,
big recruiter is out
yeah,
there hoarding up all the candidates. So you
yep.
have to
And you
come to
can't talk
them.
to anyone else. Don't answer ads by yourself. It has to be through us. I mean, if that's really how it happens, I don't know. But that's one side of the equation saying that. Another side is saying the really great candidates in state don't even know these things are coming up if it's not something that is publicized, that there's not a process to it. So we're gonna have the ability to see a little bit of both with
Yeah.
what's happening with these
Well,
process.
that's my argument is let's just express a an intention that we would really like internal candidates. We would really like to consider people internally to move up at some of these institutions, or even if they're already in an institution in the system, take over a leadership job at another institution. We would really like to see that because I think North Dakota would benefit from that. And not that there's anything wrong with people who come from Iowa or California or some of these other places, just that sometimes it's helpful to have some shared cultural history. It's helpful for somebody who's already been working in the system, maybe already has some relationships with lawmakers and executive branch people and everything else. I just think those things are helpful. And if we're intentional about it, if we're making it clear, we would really like to promote from within. I think that's what I'm looking for.
So that you'd be happy to know the process we've done at Valley City then. And so the Valley City is the third one. Bismarck State NDSU are in the process already. We did assign the co-chairs for the Valley City search, and we do need to name the interim sooner because President Lefebvre will be moving on by January 5th to Aberdeen. So we don't have the time frame that we're blessed with President Cook looking at a March time frame. So we have to get after it on the interim, announcing an interim, having a bit of a process for it. And so we put out an email, current and former employees in the system, of send in your resumes if you're interested. Send in your resume, CV, send them into Bethany, who is my assistant, and we will go over the names and provide names to the board, and the board will decide at the December 4th meeting who the interim president of Valley City State will be throughout the search. So that person will get the entire second semester and to the point where the next president is hired. We also are going to be very intentional about expressing whether these are interim to permanent opportunities or if it's interim only. And in this case, we're desiring that Valley City State interim to be interim only. And I can tell you, personally, feeling the difference at Bismarck State, and also President Leingang jumping into the role at Bismarck State with it being a little nebulous on, well, is this interim to full? Is this not? Sometimes it has been, sometimes not. So we're trying to be very transparent and communicating that up front going forward. This is interim only. So put in your resumes, bring your interest if you want to do this for this period of time. We need someone to hold down the fort, to make sure that the policies that we put in place, the people that are in place, keep the train on the tracks, right? Whereas the interim, if there's an interim that has opportunity for the full time and you're doing a search, then it's like what President Leingang is, the process he's at Bismarck State of deciding whether he's putting his name in or not. He's always said he would. So my understanding, my intention is that he would be a candidate and have his name in the search as well. But you're also the interim president, so it's a little clunky. So
Yeah.
again, we're trying to be transparent about this going forward.
So, Commissioner Sanford, one of the reasons we had you on was to talk about the North Dakota legislature, quote, digging into subsidizing online college classes for out-of-state students. The headline of that article also says the state is spending $22 million a year to subsidize out-of-state online students. Can you talk a little bit about what North Dakotans are getting for those $22 million that are being spent? Because it's such a big number, and it sort of ignores the fact that those folks are also paying tuition and bringing money in. It's not exactly an ROI or a net amount of money. But can you talk a little bit about this issue and why the legislature is worked up about it?
Yes, and it's 22 million for a biennium, Chad. So it's for 2 years, but
Okay.
it seems like a lot of money when we argue about much less sums of money, even in the appropriation bill that ends up being 700 million plus for what the general fund allocation is into credit production in higher ed. So out of 699 million, the best guesstimate we have now is 22 million from the previous bienniums is what the previous biennium funding, which would be from 21-23 credits. 22 million would be from the definition of online out of state. So that's you'll see OSOS a few times now going into session, even maybe in articles, but online out of state only, or online students out of state, I think is what it stands for. But it's not just out of state. So it's not completely around the boundaries. Minnesota students are being pulled out. Montana students are being pulled out. And obviously online North Dakota residents are being pulled out of that number. And so the number that is 22 million is roughly 78,000 credits that are produced by folks not in contiguous states, paying for credits from our system. All right. In a big scheme of things, we have roughly the same number, 5,000 or 6,000 students that are NDUS students that are outside, and then we also have 5,000 or 6,000 North Dakotans that are paying for online education outside. So we're even. We're import export, in and out, plus minus. We're about even as a state. Think of Arizona when they have 100,000 plus from Arizona State. They have University of Phoenix. They have Grand Canyon. They are so far in the other direction where they have hundreds of thousands more that are out of state students that are paying for education from those institutions. We at North Dakota are even. And my concern about this conversation becoming so toxic and so dominating of a conversation when it's less than 3% of the whole picture is that what do we do going forward to compete in higher ed when this model is moving to be half of the actual model of who's buying credits, who's not, who's taking courses, who's finishing their degrees. It's the best way for someone to go from an associate to a bachelor, staying with their family, staying in their job, finishing online to get that bachelor degree. Not a lot of argument on that. And there's also not a lot of argument that it's a very valid way of educating within the state. So to answer your question, the concern is obviously, is there a return on investment for North Dakota taxpayers of of paying for these students that are outside. And so the chore I've been giving the presidents on this is you need to come back to the legislators with who these students are. How is their value from these students? And so, for example, we put together a list of the top 10 programs by each institution. And Bismarck States is heavily in the electric power technology, energy management, electrical transmission. So these happen to be, a lot of them are employees of, say, a Basin Electric or Great River Energy, the companies that are the big donors and benefactors at Bismarck State for the energy programs over the years. Were asking President Scogan back in 2007, we need a way for these students that are your former students to get bachelor degrees when they're moving into management positions because they have lineman degrees. And a lot of those courses aren't able to be moved into a business school. The first 60 credits, they're not able to be fully transferred in. So Bismarck State allowed an online energy management bachelor degree, giving credit for the entire associate degree as an electrical lineman. And then they could finish that online, stay in their job, and all of a sudden they can be a grid operator instead of being a lineman. And so it's very seamless from their alma mater, them moving up in their career, same employers that are North Dakota employers. That's not the case everywhere. I'm telling Bismarck State, don't worry about your programs. I don't think that's a concern. That's definitely, I can tell you the governor's not concerned about that one. The appropriators are not concerned about that one. They're more interested in who's taking courses from the outside because it's cheaper or more convenient, but we'll never see that person. And is that something we should be reimbursing general fund for those credits? That's the question. And so if we're talking 22 million for that, out of 700 million, that 699 million, as a matter of fact, 699 million is a credit reimbursement amount. 22 of that 699 is for this. And what we're hearing from Senator Sorvag as the chair of the interim funding committee is, I'm just wondering about if we could take that and put it somewhere else. So his quote in the story was, I'd probably rather give 22 million of scholarships to North Dakota kids than that. And so that's pretty much the entirety of the argument.
Part of the problem is I don't know that we're not producing enough high school graduates to fill all of our capacity in the university system. So I mean, even if you wanted to, we'll make $22 million in scholarship. I mean, that's nice, but I mean that's going to be for for students who are either already going somewhere else. I mean, I don't know. I do understand the argument, and I think you really put your finger on it. We need to know who those students are to demonstrate, I think, to the taxpayers that there's return on investment here. We're doing either we're providing an opportunity for a North Dakota student who was born here, or we're attracting new people to our state who are going to come here and take jobs here, start businesses here, do all the wonderful things we want them to do in North Dakota. I do worry. I mean, I'm looking at the future of higher ed, and I think some of the frustration comes from, we have these at times, kind of lavish, some of these campuses, brick and mortar campus. I say lavish, probably by the measures of other states, we're pretty modest, but, it's a lot of investment. I mean, part of me wonders if, as more and more of the academic work moves online, what's going to be left of the campuses but some sports facilities? That seems to be kind of where we're heading. And I'm not sure. I guess I'm trying to describe a lot of the political angst it's not that we're against outsiders. I think it's just the model is changing so quickly. How do we keep up with the times, but also keep the focus on North Dakota and don't just become a Grand Canyon State University that's just advertising for everybody nationally? Or maybe we want to become that and we can make revenue that way. I don't know. But, I think at some point, like, I think you're right. I think the job in this debate is to demonstrate to North Dakota leaders what the benefit is to North Dakotans for doing this.
Yes.
That's got to be compelling.
Yes. And so if you look at a total biennial head count of anybody that's taking a credit is counted as one. And so when you see the enrollment changes from biennium to biennium, sometimes people will tell me, I don't like that number because it might be a person taking one online credit. But like it or not, that's how higher ed measures themselves nationwide, etc. But a total biennial head count, so anybody that took a credit for 2-year period, 77,000. 54,000 of them are on campus. So on person, in person, not, I don't mean freshmen, sophomores in dorms. I mean on campus, going to classes on campus. Most of them are taking at least one class online, by the way. So they're called a hybrid student. So this definition of who's online is becoming really, really, really hard to actually define a black and white answer. The representative from WICHE, Western Interchange States for Higher Ed, answered Senator Sorvag in one of the last committees to his question of, is this online continuing? There's nothing we can do about it. And the answer was, well, when you consider that a lot of freshmen are now taking all 5 of their courses online, laying on their dorm room bed. Yes, online education is here. It's a choice of how they want to learn. They can choose to take the course online hybrid, living in the dorm, living in Fargo as a student at NDSU, or they might be living in Maine on a couch because it's affordable. They want to get an engineering degree or they want to get 2 classes. It's really a matter of how do we get the data in here to show what our students need to do and the potential North Dakota workforce that might be drawn in from out of state. Keep in mind, if someone's picking UND or Bismarck State from far outside of our boundaries, there's a reason. Maybe they're military, maybe they're alumni, maybe their parents are alumni, maybe someone like me that was in Denver that came back. I mean, it's like there's a reason they could choose a lot of other providers. And so the campuses are saying there is nexus there. If someone's choosing to be a UND space studies master's or PhD student, maybe they have an undergrad from here. Maybe they're, and so we want to make sure not to just throw it all out. But I get it. I totally get the question of if there's return on investment. I do. And so from our standpoint, system offices, let's be transparent. Let's answer the questions of the legislators. Let's put it out there for them to see. They're the ones that tell us how they fund higher ed. And then we will make do with that as we get moving on into session and past.
Brent, talking about return on investment, I mean, there's a paragraph in this article from the Vice President of Finance from the University of North Dakota, which, by the way, I attended, that says they receive $2.09 in tuition and fees for every $1 of state funding. To me, if you're getting $2 with a $1 investment, that seems like a pretty good return on investment. Not even talking about who these students are. This is more money coming in than the legislature is appropriating. Isn't that a pretty good example that this is working?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, so Carla Stewart answered the call to explain what this higher ed model looks like. And the answer I'll get from those that are not seeing the ROI is, but it's not bringing a human being into our state to work the job openings we have here. So if we're spending $1 out there for UND to get $2 more, but not bring in someone to actually fill a job here, is that what we're trying to do? Reimbursing on out of state. And so some states don't reimburse for out of state. Their reimbursement models are for in state. And so what we do in our system is a credit is a credit is a credit. A credit might be a dual credit student in high school, it might be online out of state, far out of the region. It might be someone that's actually here in medical school. It might be someone that's in their dorm room, is taking all 5 courses online. That if they complete a credit, that's where our formula is reimburse general fund dollars, $699 million last biennium for a course being completed. That is unique to North Dakota. Another thing unique that we found out that I thought was a really good tidbit was the fact that we don't have a factor for reimbursing based on graduations, based on credentialing is what that term would be called. Certificates, associate degrees, tech degrees, master electricians, whatever it is, whatever the graduate, the completions, the credentialing, we don't have a factor within our higher ed formula for that. So some of this conversation in interim finance for the funding formula is, okay, if we go away from some of this weighted credit hour payment only, what other factors would we like to compensate for? What would drive behavior the direction we want to see higher ed moving? And so I want to be transparent and accountable, but also responsive to the workforce needs and our needs of our students in North Dakota. So we're up for listening and being part of that conversation. We want to be viewed as that.
Can I ask just one follow-up to that? So is the suggestion here with this UND example that conceivably UND could still be getting that $2.09 without that $1 state investment, that you could still be getting those $2 without that dollar?
Yeah. So then it gets into an argument of would that student still be paying the $2 if UND has to increase the tuition rate accordingly to compensate for not getting any general fund reimbursement back?
Sure.
So we're heavily into a conversation of cost. And it seems to me that it's getting to a point of realizing that its costs the same or similar because you have this technology behind making sure your online course is something that when you're competing against online only programs, it's not just a camera behind the head of the instructor. It's a very, you're very interactive with taking the tests, with having the materials available on your computer. I mean, it's a big it's a technology investment versus the space, so there needs to be reimbursement. But I'm contending we're going to see less offering of online classes if we take the funding away. And are we okay with that? When you look at half of our online students are North Dakota residents. If we strip away half those out of state residents so that the revenue is not coming in, is the offering we have left with that technology, with those instructors that are left, is that enough for us to be able to provide that need in state? For example, Bismarck State is 2/3 of their online energy management programs are students. 2/3 are North Dakota residents. 2/3 of them. And then, another couple hundred are in immediately adjoining states. And so does that hurt those of us that are left and those students that are left if we take away the economy of scale? So it's really down to that. What do we need
Yeah.
for a business model? Does the scale have to be a certain level to offer a good online delivery model for our students? Otherwise, they're going to be taking the great online offerings from out of state, from Western Governors, from Arizona State, from Southern New Hampshire, that's their entire business model.
Brent, thanks for your time.
All right.
Thanks, Brent.
Fun as always. Thank you.